I mean, I want to be fair though. It's really David's story. Like I helped him with it, but it's his story, you know. And you know, we've done a couple of films together, The Fighter and American Hustle, and and then actually back around like American Hustle time, he did come to me for a different idea he had with a character, and then that sort of just faded away. And then he gives me a buzz, and we met at a nice old greasy spoon diner called the Early World that we used to meet at, which sadly has closed down now. And it's where we always met whenever we would talk about maybe making a project together, starting with The Fighter. And he sat me down and he wanted to talk all about the Dulles brothers. And so we talked a bit about that, and then, you know, the way David works, it's not like a linear thing. He's got like all these ideas, sort of satellites going around. But I love the way he thinks, and I love working with him. You know, we knew we had a good working relationship, and we liked the results. He's somebody who's been through hell, but he's a real optimist. You know, that's the thing. Like his, you know, mantras were kind of eyebrows up, and this sort of a wonderful openness to life, refusing to go numb, you know, from his experiences. And also remember, this is obviously set like, you know, Depression era America, so tough times. And equally with, you know, the advent of fascism in Europe, and many Americans, you know, look into that and say, well, it's successful economically, you know, and many business interests, American business interests, wanting to imitate that fascism within America. So coming from tough times, and but his, you know, it's what I love about him so much. Is he's a real scrapper and a real fighter, but absolutely tries to, you know, stop negative emotions of anger, etc., from overtaking him, despite it being completely understandable. So he's a very inspiring guy, you know, in that way. First, Bert and Harold, who were looking out for each other, make a pact, you know, to look out for each other in the war, and then they are treated by this nurse who appears out of nowhere and is pulling metal out of them, you know, the shrapnel and stuff, and making art out of it, and she seems wacky and nuts, and they love her for that. And then they form a pact, the three of them, and then they have these kind of halcyon days in Amsterdam, and hence that's why David and me always just called it Amsterdam, and then we went through a variety of different names instead of, and it just came back to like, well, we always called it Amsterdam, let's leave it at that, it's great. So they have these halcyon days there for all of them, and then for varying reasons, Bert has to get back to the States, and then it all kind of falls apart, you know, and then you see the three of them unexpectedly reuniting many years later, but caught in the middle of this crime that they're accused of, that feels like a small thing, but ends up being this bloody, you know, global, really global-sized conspiracy. Satisfaction of seeing something from the absolute birth of sitting in Early World with David, with him going, I've got an idea, and let's talk about the Dulles brothers. And then they had nothing to do with the film, right? So we moved on from that. But just knowing and seeing it, and seeing him gradually building that story, and my input about Bert and who Bert was, and that, it's wonderfully satisfying, you know? It's truly kind of, as we called it, baked in. Like it was just sort of, when you prep for that long, oh man, it's just in your bones.
So Harold and Bert, Harold played by John David Washington, Bert played by Christian Bale, meet in war, and Valerie is a nurse. So they all meet in Belgium, and she treats them, and they all kind of run off to Amsterdam together, where they have this kind of golden bubble of time in Amsterdam, and it's just kind of that thing that they always carry with them, that they had this time in Amsterdam. And then they don't see each other for many years. Well, Valerie doesn't see them for many years, and kind of when they're all flung back together, they're caught up in this murder and conspiracy plot. So during lockdown, I just started making art like she would, and it was really fun and bizarre. I mean, she's a quirky, bizarre kind of character anyway, but her art is also very, has a lot to say about life and mortality and innocence and power and all these kind of themes, but it's also maybe disturbing for some people. So I spent a lot of time making. My husband literally thought I was losing my mind in lockdown. I was making masks, and found all these, like, I'd have like glass eyeballs and mannequins and dolls and these x-rays of deformities and shrapnel and babies and like all this, and I'd have like make these little short films with my Super 8 camera, and some of that footage is in the movie. Actually, I watched kind of the movie and I was like, oh my god, that's my Super 8 movie. I'm because I sent everything to David, of course. So that was really, really cool to see that pop up. I don't know, I get the impression that he's someone that's just like watched people a lot and understood that in certain situations when something really big and scary is happening, actually something really small and hilarious can be happening at the same time. I feel like he does that a lot in his films, and certainly in this film. There'll be moments where it's kind of like big world-ending sort of stakes, but then actually they're just all caught up in their own small thing, which can be really hilarious. I love it when directors kind of mix drama with comedy in that way. Otherwise it's just a bit too much to take, isn't it? I think that would definitely be Valerie's point of view too. So if you didn't find the humor and if you didn't find the beauty, you just couldn't do it. It's just too much. I mean, there was a lot of very, very funny people on this set and very comedically gifted actors, a part of the ensemble cast. So, as you can imagine, a lot of improv and a lot of breaking the scene because everyone's just laughing. I'd say anytime Mike and Michael, so Mike Myers and Michael Shannon, anytime they'd start riffing on bird watching stuff, I mean, we were just like completely undone. I mean, there's so many takes that I don't think anyone could have used. And I remember thinking at the time, I was like, this will never be in this. How could this possibly be in the movie? And then honestly, when I watch the movie, it's like my favorite parts when they talk. But I mean, there is so much footage of them talking about birds, and it was so funny. But that's like why there's so many great little duos on camera. Whether you've got like Alessandra and Matthias, like the two cops, is like this one little duo, or you've got, Mike and Michael, like there's like all these like little duos, and everyone's so funny. You're so pleased when they pop up on screen. But it's funny that you can have someone who's so known for their comedy, like Mike Myers, with someone who's so known for their drama, like Michael Shannon, and then they can just riff off each other and be hilarious and serious and moving and all those things. I mean, it's so funny. Saying like Matthias is thought of as such a dramatic actor as well, and he's hilarious. And Christian's obviously Christian could do literally anything. He's so funny. I mean, everyone was just so good, so talented. It's really charming and magical and propulsive, and it's like both people's tiny little worlds and the big world at the same time, if that makes sense.
So I was able to get a hold of the script and realizing it was a period piece. I was like, 1918, 1933. I immediately started to think, as I was reading it, like what would that feel like for an African American in those times? And World War I, I was more familiar with World War II than I was I. It's almost like a forgotten war in a way. So that was very appealing as well. And and I was really excited about being able to get to do some research about that and really investigating what it means to be a war veteran, and racial profiling aside, just an American fighting for your country in 1918, and having a global sense of what that would feel like too. As far as what I mean by that is how the world viewed us Americans and our relationship to the world. Joining the World War I a little late. And then at the heart of it, as I started to, read more of it, realizing that it's ultimately comes down to friendship and companionship and trust. And that was probably what sealed the deal. Felt like All-Star Weekend, I imagine. Like I'm in an All-Star game. I'm just sitting back and watching these masters go. Chris Rock just riffing. And, and I mean, it felt, every time he was on set too, I felt protected in a way. I felt like, and I imagine that's what it felt like when you get back with your war buddies, when they got all together, this 369th members, the Harlem Hellfighters. It felt like this historical bond of like trauma, fight for equal rights, what Chris Rock represents, period, like in comedy and entertainment, as an actor, as everything. It kind of informed the relationship between the characters. And I love that I was using that as much as I could, this sort of protection, yet having to, having different, because he's younger in the movie, having a different point of view and maybe more optimism than Chris's character in that sense. So that was great. But yeah, just every day, I mean, seeing the transformation of Christian Bale. Obviously, it's what he does. It's his calling card. He just disappears. In fact, I don't think I met him, Christian Bale, until we rapped. So, that's obviously speaks to his skill set. But every day I just found motivation when you see these performances, when you see Rami, he was doing some crazy choices. He's so brilliant. And obviously Michael Shannon as well. I really, Mike Myers, like everybody. It was fantastic to see, to be a part of, to witness. I remember there was a moment of like almost shock of like how real it felt. Like I felt like I was totally transported into a time. 1918 was those hospital scenes. Like we were, with Valerie and we're like, she's like yelling in French and we're speaking in French and I have my wound, my bandages on and my wounds and everything. That felt extremely real. And the French uniforms that they made, I thought those were great. Those were excellent. And I felt like in a way that we were armed with history on that. Like people aren't gonna. I don't think it's well known that was a thing that happened, and it felt something. It gave me it felt like a cape, like a superhero in a way, because of how the French treated the African American soldiers, the way they're supposed to be treated. What I remember always about filming in Amsterdam was the level of professionalism on a set like that. How you have these major stars, everybody's been nominated or won an Academy Award, and yet they were all there to service the film with the same energy and spirit that I had, that I love about films, and like seeing these great actors do their thing, and yet they trusted, me, they trusted their, other actors all together. So they didn't feel like any, the ego was removed, in my opinion. And what I just loved about it was seeing like all these actors that I grew up loving and been watching for years come together and, make something really cool. So I thought that was a huge highlight for me. The love of these characters, as quirky, unique, unhinged at times, deeply sorrowful and traumatized people, that they're good people and they're trying their best. So I think it's just going to be entertaining. It's going to look beautiful. Take that in, people.
One of the most original characters you will ever meet in your life is David O. Russell. He is like no one you have met before or you will ever meet again. This was a dream come true. I've known David, I've been bumping into David for, 25 years or whatever. And, we always talked at parties and whatnot, and always, I thought we liked each other. And, I just never, it was never a part for me. And I never took it personal. So you just, to finally get the call and to finally, and have fun with it. So we had fun. Like, I had a good time with everybody. And yeah, it's a dream. Like, this guy is a grand master, you know what I mean? Like, he's the real deal. It's an adventure. It's a David O. Russell adventure, man. And either you buy into it or not. And David O. Russell sent Christian Bale a script, and Christian Bale called him back. That's enough that's enough for you to go to a movie theater. Christian Bale, one of the greatest actors of our time, called somebody back and said, let's talk about this. Okay, I guess we should all get in line, see what the hell they were talking about. His sets are moving so fast. It's not like your average set where you're just hanging in your trailer for 4 hours to shoot something for 40 minutes. David O. Russell's sets are moving. They're working organisms, and something's always shooting, and you have to be on your toes. He uses multiple cameras, and they're kind of always running, and he's just trying to get real moments. Like, has no problem giving you a line reading or changing a line in the middle of a scene, and you gotta be on your toes. Great time with John David. I'd never met him before. And, you know, I tried to be an uncle figure. You know, the guy obviously has a father figure. So I tried to be like that cool uncle he sees, you know, every 4 years. Margot's a great actress, and we bonded over spicy chicken from Howlin' Ray's Chicken. So me and Margot are cool. It's weird. Here's a weird thing. I spent more time with Mike Myers on this movie and actually talking to Mike Myers than I did 3 years of Saturday Night Live. It's like, his office was over there, my office was over there. He was Wayne's World, man. He's a big star. I was just, a guy struggling on the bench. So I didn't really, even though I'd worked, you know what I mean? Like, you would think me and Mike Myers know each other. Didn't know him at all. Had a great time with De Niro. And he had his son was there, Julian. So we even did a dinner or two. The guy's like one of my favorite actors. It's like made me care about Batman. You know what I mean? He's like, you know what I mean? Like, the guy's great. He's a great actor. He's amazing. American Hustle, with the comb over and the whole thing. He put the weight on, the fight. Come on, man. Christian Bale, man. Like, the real deal. He's the real deal. Like, comedians and actors, a lot of times comedians have no respect, and I'm sure it goes back. And he was like, what are you, reading somebody else's words? Good for you. But Christian Bale is the real deal. He becomes other humans. You know what I mean? Like, Christian Bale's like a real live, he's a real transformer. He's a real X-Men. It's like he becomes other people.
What's interesting about grouping love, murder, and conspiracy together is the fact that all of those themes are being explored kind of at the same time within the movie, which is what makes it such a fun and exciting ride, because you can never technically pin it down. There is a theme in David's movies of love, whether that's romantic love, familial love, just the idea of a love that's unconditional. And one of our characters, Bert, is very much looking for that. And we have the theme of, is it better to choose to be with somebody or to need to be with somebody? There's many beautiful love stories within it. The murder and conspiracy kind of kicks us off. You sort of begin in a bit of a murder mystery which leads you to a conspiracy. But again, it is a wild ride, and I defy anybody to be able to pin it down at any moment, which is why I love it. If I could have just been a fly on the wall in this movie, I would have gone every single day. It was so fascinating to watch every single person excel, not only at what they do best, but also trying something kind of out of their own box. And I think the reason why that was available to us is because David's really interested in allowing our humanity to come through. He doesn't want something that's super over-prepared. He doesn't want you overthinking it. He wants you to show up and be alive. Like, that's the main note always, just be alive. Which when the first time you hear it, you're like, okay, I am alive. So I don't know quite what to do about that. But the more you free yourself up, you just end up in this incredibly exhilarating environment. And that's what I really loved about it. I loved that every day I did not know what was going to happen, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I felt that that gave me a confidence as a performer that I haven't really had before. If we're talking about her kindly, which I would like to, at least in this instance, Libby is incredibly enthusiastic about the things that she enjoys, and she very much values patriotism and the honorable man. That is something that is very important to her. And she's very protective over her husband, Tom, because he was bullied as a child, and she feels that she's kind of the Rottweiler in that situation. But yeah, you know, she's an eccentric bird, very much so. Everyday life is funny. Humanity is funny. If you cannot laugh at yourself and the people around you, you're doing something wrong, because there's so many opportunities to laugh in this life, and you kind of have to take them if you can. I think part of the reason why it works is because it's so fast-paced that you really cannot settle in any of the genres, and that's what I love, because any of the laughs that I've had watching the movie take me completely by surprise. I was in an entirely different headspace, and then all of a sudden you're belly laughing, truly. And I'll also say that without disrespecting any other film, because I very much enjoy them, I think there's something really special in the spectacle of the movie being the performances and the performers rather than a visual effect. I love visual effect movies, same as everybody, but I was just watching, as an audience member, unbelievable performers showing up and just giving it their all. And there's no moment in this movie where someone is not filling the screen and entertaining you and taking you along for that ride.
There's a woman that is resilient, that is positive about all kinds of outcomes of events that life sort of tosses at her. She knows what she wants to do. She's incredibly intelligent and finds ways around in order for her to feel like she's just living her best self. And by having these conversations, I gave myself that permission to tap into the women that me as a Caribbean woman know. You know, the Caribbean women are resilient, and Irma Sinclair is a Caribbean woman. What brings them together is the same thing that you know brings them apart, and it's they're looking for love, and they are very much in love with their significant others, and they are walking around with a broken heart and this hope that things will get better. With their respective partners. What Irma compels Bernie to do is to think whether or not it's worth changing so many things about yourself that are not worth changing for anyone, because there's nothing wrong with you. And because Bernie really feels very less than, but he gives so much. He's such a service person. He lives for the sake of others, and he puts everyone else first over his needs. It felt wonderful, you know. Everybody was incarnating their characters with so much freaking force, and we were all there to just allow David to mold us like clay, you know, and so the excitement was really real. Obviously, I'm in awe of everybody, especially, you know, Robert De Niro, because I've just, as a New Yorker, as just an artist, I just think he's so wonderful. And to know that I was able to just share, you know, be in the same film as he, along with this wonderful cast, it's just amazing. And It goes to show, like, when you are a good storyteller, you know, you write something and everybody's gonna come, you know, or you invite somebody and they will always say yes. In my wildest dreams, I would have never thought that I would get the opportunity to work with someone like David O. Russell, let alone with like Christian Bale again, and to have been asked. I was the highlight of my year, I have to say. Amsterdam is important to watch on the silver screen because of, well, it's a David O. Russell story. It has an amazing cast. The sets were beautiful. And our director of photography, El Chivo, just, you know, hit it out of the ballpark with his lighting. It's a magical story that will make you feel really good. And I think it's important that films like this, where so much work, so many sacrifices are put into one place, they're only worthy to watch and celebrate on the silver screen.
At its heart, it's a comedic thriller, I think, about love and loyalty and the reasons to live in the face of unknown, shocking history. As we follow these three gorgeous, inseparable human beings and everyone they encounter on this really special adventure to save themselves, their souls, and possibly even more. Yeah, with David, the humor doesn't come out of any punchline. It's just purely out of straight human behavior and absurd human behavior. We see it day in and day out, and he finds a way to capture it on film in all of his movies, and especially this one. Cast in this film is staggering, and with that caliber of acting and performances, you could expect ego, but that wasn't the case. Day in and day out, everyone was working to enhance each other's performance. And when I met Margot, she said, why don't we come to my house and talk about our backstory? Anya came over, we talked about our backstory as well, and we started to develop this relationship. So when we stepped on set, we had a unit. When you watch a David O. Russell film, you know you are going to get a collection of scenes with creatures who do extraordinary, unusual things. There's no doubt about it. And in this film, he adds a level of amazing, shocking history, but it's all subverted by simple, beautiful ideas. Do you choose love, right? Do you choose love or do you need love? And those small moments have you asking that long after you've seen the film. Because it's, as Christian says, it's love versus hate. And it's simple.
He represented the military, the best of the military, though there were military who were against him because he was for the common man, the lowest ranked soldier. He was for them and telling them, don't be conned by the higher ups, whoever that may be. You know, you deserve whatever you should get. And everybody's working together. You're all doing something. You're going forward. David's the conductor. He's getting us all to do. So you're not thinking much more about anything other than what you're supposed to do. It was a good experience. It always is with David, and a very special one. And whatever happens with the film, it'll be remembered as a special movie, no matter what. And that, to be part of that, to me, is really important. David is capable of doing that as a director, and that's why I always like to work with him.
I always thought this world was beautiful from hearing about it from my older relatives, my dad who grew up in it, my mother who grew up in it. And it's a world that is very beautiful. And we, myself, Christian, the cinematographer, Chivo, we wanted to create it so it was our world. It was not one that you'd experienced before, that it was beautiful and enchanting in a way that makes it completely new, which is how my best movies that I've watched by other people are. You see the world with new eyes because of the personalities and the nature of the world. Now this world, it's two worlds really. The film's a bit of an epic film. So, because you see the history of their friendship. So this, in a way, is my most ambitious film, and it's the most like a novel. Amsterdam, love, murder, conspiracy. Or Amsterdam, let the love, murder, and conspiracy begin. Now, to me, this is a story I want to tell. This is a story I want to hear. Love, it starts with love. And love is what drives Burt Berenson, played by Christian Bale, an outsider doctor who married into this medical practice. He loves his wife, and the in-laws don't like him. They don't like this outsider. You don't belong here. Go to the war, you'll get a bunch of medals, you'll come back, you'll fit in, Christian Bale. You'll fit in, and you'll fit in more. And Harold Woodman has also been told in his new world, having moved from Texas, where he has a deep past we're going to hear about, to New York, you're going to belong more as Americans. You'll get full rights as Americans if you go to war. Same thing. They were told they could not have a regiment, the 369th. However, Bill Hayward, which is somewhat the basis for Bill Meekins, the Ed Begley character, this was someone who insisted that these men deserved to have their own regiment. And they, of course, turned out to be one of the most heroic and unstoppable regiments in the whole war. Well, to me, you know, the reality of the characters and the worlds that I get to make with my collaborators are funny because of how committed they are to who they are. And that means their personalities and their spirits and their courage for life and also their struggles with life. And that, to me, is always funny, it's as much as it is also emotional and serious. So all of these characters are funny. And I was going to describe the moment when Bert feels abandoned by Harold, just to go back to the hospital for a second. And Harold's walking off with Valerie, JD walking off with Margot, his new friend, his new romance. And Bert says, "Hey, what are you doing? Where are you going?" You know, it's how it always is for friends, whether it's two women friends or two men friends. One of them meets somebody to get involved with, and, "Oh, what's happening? You're leaving. You know, you're going off." Right? And Chris Rock says, "Hey, young man, do you know what you're doing right now?" And Valerie says, "He's in very safe hands with me." I loved her performance in I, Tanya, which I consider to be a cousin of The Fighter, that world, those people, leading those double lives of dreams and trouble, you know, and mistakes and redemptions, you know. So, and getting to know her, she was a natural fit for this role, and she's a fearless actor, and she will, even if she's uncertain about something. This is one of the things I admire about her most. It's an act of faith. It's a leap of faith. Even if she's uncertain about something, she will leap in and give it 1,000%. And that's a great courage as an artist and as an actor. And she did it with the French. She did it with the art. This is her art. And she actually made the art herself. We gave her these old cameras from the period and these tools and the metal scraps. And she made, during the pandemic, she made art in her house that is in the movie, that she made. So she's very modest, and she'll say, you know, I didn't really do that, but she did do that. Judy Becker is an incredible designer that I've worked with going back to before The Fighter, and she is an artist in her own right, and she creates her worlds. Judy creates beautiful worlds, as she did, and she's very specific with every. She does it Judy's way, and it's her signature, the way she makes something beautiful. And in Silver Linings, it was one way. In The Fighter, it was another way. In American Hustle, it was this way. And in Amsterdam, it's this way. The world is luscious and precise and filled with Valerie's art that Judy helped create with Margot and with Sterling, Linder Sterling, who's a British visual artist who, like Valerie, she makes art like Valerie makes, like Merritt Oppenheim makes, like Hannah Hawk makes. These are the historical artists that I was inspired by. George O'Keeffe as well has a lot of the attitude that Valerie has. And So Judy's everything.